fixing one of the worst Magic sets ever. No, not this one. This one. Hey everyone, it's VM Campos, Magic fan, vintage Magic fan. Now I've been playing Magic the Gathering since 1995 or so. I gave it up in 1999 or so and stopped for a long time until I got back to it in 2017 with Hour of Devastation, and I've been back ever since. I still have a soft spot for all of those vintage sets from back in the day, 95, 96, all those vintage Magic sets. And what I've been thinking recently is, what if we look at one of the worst Magic sets ever and from a modern perspective try upgrading the cards to be usable? That's what this video is all about, looking at the old cards in this old set, Fallen Empires, and seeing if we can kind of upgrade them for the new times. The cool thing is, you can take my ideas and then simply proxy up cards that you have and play with them. Obviously, it's the coolest if you have some vintage Fallen Empires cards to play with. And the funny thing is that these cards were so worthless for so long, but those darn Magic Finance people have really driven up the price for even this humble set, which many call the worst set of Magic. Homelands would like to have a word with you, but today we're focused on Fallen Empires. Briefly, Fallen Empires was released in 1994 in November. Where does the time go? It wasn't part of any block. There really weren't any blocks at that time anyway. It had a strong tribal theme. It had 102 cards, kind of. There were 35 commons, 31 uncommons, 36 rares. The thing with this was that there were many alternate arts. For the commons, you can get up to 4 different alternate arts of the same common. It's the same card, 4 different arts. Pick your favorite art, and they were all pretty amazing. There were various themes. In white, we had the Feralites, the Order of Leetber, which was Acacia. In blue, we had the Merfolk, specifically the Vodalians and Hummerids. In black, we had the Order of the Ebon Hand. Those were my favorite. We had Thralls, those were also cool. In red, we had Dwarves, Goblins, and Orcs. And in green, we had the Elves and the Thalids. So some of these things are obviously still around decades later, and some of them have fallen by the wayside. There were many, many, many tokens in this set as well, and there's a whole amazing history of Fallen Empires. There's plenty of other videos out there that exist that tell you the history of Fallen Empires, or just read the wiki all about it, but that's our quick intro to Fallen Empires. Horrible set, great nostalgia. The goal of today's video is that I'm going to go through these various cards, reminisce, dig those vintage borders, and then tell you possible ways that these cards could have been improved, especially with the look of modern eyes. Some of these cards are almost still playable, some of them are horrifically unplayable, some of them are just about nostalgia. Some have actually even gone up in value because of Commander. And we're going to look through them. Not every single card. I'd love to do that, but you probably wouldn't watch an hour-long video on that. Or would you? Tell me in the comments. And we're going to pick and choose some of the best, quote, best Fallen Empires cards and upgrade them for the new generation of players. Let's start off by looking at the most valuable Fallen Empires cards, and here I'm using mtg.dongler.com, very cool website that gives you an overview of Magic prices. Here, as of this video, here are the most valuable Kamigawa Neon Dentistry cards that you can get out there. These are all of the variant cards, and you see they're worth big bucks. Pretty amazing. The most valuable is, of course, the Wanderer, unless you get Hitotsugu. But this is a cool website to kind of visualize valuable cards. Comparatively with Fallen Empires, there's way fewer of them here, but let's take these cards, let's look at them and see how we can upgrade them to be even better than ever. Starting off with Rainbow Veil, a land that taps for any mana at all, does not come in tapped. What's the downside? At the end of the turn, it passes over to an opponent of your choice. This is actually a fine card all by itself. No real need for upgrades here. It is the most valuable Fallen Empires card. It's got beautiful Kaya Folio art. This one's kind of good as is, but how would you upgrade it? Don't go crazy. Keep it within reason. Alright, next up, also at a big old $9 or so, is the Thrall Champion. Alright, so Thralls were a major theme of this set. There were these creatures that we're just basically chattel for the Order of the Ebon Hand. This is Summon Thrall, or nowadays Creature Thrall. It's a 2/2. All your thralls, actually not all your thralls, all thralls on the battlefield get +1/+1. Tap the champion, gain control of target thrall for as long as you control this. So you can steal everyone's thralls. Okay, that's not too useful nowadays. People don't play with a lot of thralls. Plus a casting cost of 5 mana for a 2/2 that pumps all thralls. Now, it's not legendary, so you can have multiples, but in Commander, obviously, you can only have one. Now, how can we improve this one? First of all, I'm going to bring the mana value down just to triple black. We don't need 6 mana for this. We're going to cut it in half, but keep it triple black so that you're really focused on Thrall Tribal. I'm going to make it a 3/3 as well. 3 black mana, it's a 3/3, it gives all thralls +1/+1. And we'll keep the tap ability there as is. If you can think of a better way to tap and steal stuff, let me know. Maybe pay some mana to make a creature become a thrall, and then tap it to steal the creature. That might be way too powerful. What do you think? Next tier level is Elvish Farmer and Conkhorn. Elvish Farmer, it's a 0/2 for 2 mana. Okay, not so bad. It's a creature elf, still relevant creature types nowadays. And here's what Fallen Empires love to do this over and over. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a spore counter on this. Remove 3 spores, activated ability, create a Saproling, a 1/1. Sacrifice a Saproling, gain 2 life. This is one of the most valuable Fallen Empires cards, and as is, I would keep this as is. The stats of 0/2 are kind of interesting. Maybe I would make it a 1/2 or a 1/1. I know it's a farmer, not a fighter, but he's got weapons, he's got hoes and stuff, and their hoes are also holding hoes. So I would bump it up maybe as a 1/2 and keep everything else as is. Plus this utterly beautiful Richard Kane Ferguson art. Ferguson is still doing art nowadays, but I kind of prefer that first early burst of creativity in Magic cards from 30 years ago. This is some of the most beautiful Richard Kane Ferguson art I've ever seen. Next up, Conkhorn. Now, Fallen Empires was a response to the overpowered sets that had previously premiered. This was the 5th set ever. Before that, we had Legends, Antiquities, Arabian Nights, Alpha, Beta, etc. Very powerful cards. This was a way depowered set in general. And there were these various artifacts that tried to mimic the abilities of broken alpha cards. This one was supposed to mimic Brainstorm. It's in an artifact, so that's weird. 2 mana, then you pay 1 and tap, dig the classic tap symbol. So, reading the current text, draw 2 cards, then put a card from your hand on top of your library. So it's mini Brainstorm. Instead of drawing 3 and putting back 2, you draw 2, put back 1 in an artifact. So any deck can play it. This sees play nowadays. It's $4 nowadays. Back in the day, it was 10 cents. I have a whole binder full of them right over there. So kind of as is, this works fine. This works great in affinity decks, definitely. I wouldn't really change too much about it. I think it's pretty powerful as is. And here we have more folio art. Phil Folio and Kaya Folio, husband and wife Magic team. I don't think they were married at the time, maybe, but they did Magic art. Their style is somewhat similar. Phil's is a little bit more cartoony, but I love that husband and wife Magic team. Next up, we've got 2 cards that really exemplified the colors of the set plus Fungal Bloom. Let me look at Fungal Bloom first. Double green for an enchantment, then you can pay double green again to put a spore counter on target fungus. So again, there was a lot of synergy with thalids and fungi and all of that. And this is another one of the valuable ones in the set. It works fine as is, but what if it was, okay, double green enchantment, double green, put a spore counter on target permanent you control. What about that? Because then we can also put those spore counters on the farmer, and I don't think it would be too OP to put spores on your snow-covered swamps. There's no real reason to do it. I think that'd be kind of interesting to just further synergize with it. 2 green, put a spore counter on target creature you control. Make it fair. All right, next up we have the Hand of Justice and Ebon Praetor. This was a series of monocolor cards that were very expensive and did interesting things. Let's look at each one in Wooburg order. Hand of Justice, 6 mana, summon Avatar, nowadays creature avatar. Tap 3, untap white creatures you control, destroy target creature. So you have to tap 4 creatures in total. They've all got to be white creatures, and then you destroy any creature. All right, let's make this much more feasible for today's Magic. We don't need this to be 6 mana. How about triple white? Triple white, You really have to be all in on white if you want it to work, and you don't need 6 mana for it. Now, speaking of which, dig the vintage symbol, the white mana symbol, which is different than nowadays. That's the only mana symbol that has changed throughout the decades. But anyway, Hand of Justice. Just make it triple white, half the mana, and its ability I think will still work. It'll let you destroy any creature, which is great, but there's a stipulation you need 4 white creatures to do it. If only there were a way for white to create lots of little creatures. Oh well. Deep Spawn was the huge blue threat of Fallen Empires. 8 mana for a Homarid, which was a little sea creature thing. Trample 6/6. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice Deep Spawn unless you mill 2 cards. Blue. Deep Spawn gains Shroud until end of turn and doesn't untap next turn. Alright, so make it triple blue. Keep the trample 6/6. Have yourself get milled. Self-mill in blue, that doesn't even work nowadays, does it? Self-mill would be in black? So, I don't think it needs the self-mill. That's even nowadays not even a downside. You can do so much graveyard shenanigans. Now, the part about Shroud and losing 1 turn, just completely change that. Single blue, Deep Spawn gains Shroud. Okay, nowadays, Deep Spawn gains Hexproof. I would have liked to have kept Shroud as a little bit of a downside, but for the modern player, we'll put it as Hexproof. It's not going to tap, and it's going to untap normally, no problem. Actually, let's make it quad blue. Yeah, quad blue, trample, it mills you, single blue gives it Hexproof. No extra tap ability. There, we fixed it. In black, we had my favorite and one of the weirdest arts, Ebon Praetor. This one is an Avatar Praetor. It's got First Strike and Trample. It's a 5/5. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a -2/-2 on this. So you paid 6 whole mana to get a 5/5 Trample First Strike that is slowly going to get weaker and eventually kill itself. But wait a minute. Sacrifice a creature, activated ability, sack outlet. Remove one of these counters from it. And if you sacrificed a throw, add a +1. And only do this during your upkeep and only once each turn. Whoa, these old cards, they were really afraid of getting overpowered after Alpha Beta and all of that. They really dialed it down. Okay, let's fix this. Make it quad black. It's still a 5/5. It's still First Strike. It's still Trample. It's still going to weaken itself. We're going to have it do a -1/-1 per turn. Let's stick around longer. So -1/-1. We'll keep the sack outlet, but let's get really creative. This is now going to get -1/-1 each turn. Sacrifice a creature. Add a -1/-1 to the Praetor. Okay, so you're gonna kill your Praetor with these free sack outlets. But wait a minute, if the sacrifice creature was a throw, put a +1/+1. And we're gonna remove the part about activate only once per turn. Remove that completely. Sacrifice as much as you want. So you're not gonna get an infinite sack outlet because it's still gonna weaken itself. It's gonna weaken itself every turn. But if you happen to be sacrificing throws, then you're keeping it alive. That's not gonna be broken, is it? In red, we had the Org, and legend has it this is named like this because someone didn't know how to spell ogre over in Wizards, so they called it Org. Alright, so it's a 6/6 for 5 mana with Trample, amazing. Org cannot attack if defending player controls an untapped creature with power 3 or greater. Org cannot block creatures with power 3 or greater. So it's afraid to block big creatures, and it can't attack with big creatures. It's weird. So how can we improve this one? Let's say Org cannot attack if defending player controls exactly 3 creatures. Yeah, let's do that. And then we'll change Org cannot block creatures that are 3/3. Yeah, we'll keep all of the sort of like 3 motif to it, but change sort of those things because you get a 6/6 with Trample in the original printing, but it can't really do too much. So I just fixed it. And then in green, we had the Feral Thallid, 6 mana, triple green. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a spore counter on this. So yeah, basically all fungi in this got spore counters. Remove 3 spores, regenerate Feral Thallid. So classic regenerate, so confusing for modern audiences, and it's even worse nowadays than it was back in the day. But basically, something's about to die. Instead, you pay the regeneration cost, and it doesn't die, in short answer. But you also have to remove it from combat, and you tap it, and all this dumb stuff that doesn't make sense anymore. So anyway, how do we fix this one? Make it a 6/6 as well. All of these are basically 6/6s. Just keep them all 6/6. Keep the motif going. Put it in quad green. Let those spore counters add up. That's fine. And keep the regeneration cost. Well, to make it more palatable nowadays, have it become indestructible. Remove three spore counters. Feral Thala becomes indestructible until end of turn. Let's do that. There we go. So those were some of the big high-profile cards that we've just fixed. And what I'm going to do now is go through the list of all of the cards and pick out a few that I think stand out that might be nice to upgrade again. And once again, I'd like to hear your thoughts down in the comments. How would you further upgrade these? We'll go in Wooburg order, alphabetically. Starting off with Combat Medic. This is an interesting one. And this shows you here the various arts that are available for several of these cards. So 4 different arts. It's the exact same card. Okay, so 3 mana. You get a 0/2 soldier. In the modern printing, it's prevent the next 1 damage that would be dealt to any target this turn. So that also helps your planeswalkers. Now 3 mana to get this little guy out. Let's make it way better. We're going to do a single white mana. Activated ability will be a single white mana, and then it prevents the damage, and this will become a 1/1. I think with power creep nowadays, I think those stats are not outlandish. What do you think? All right, Acacian Infantry, a lot of beautiful art on that one. Let's go with Drew Tucker art. He always had some very abstract styles. Acacian Infantry, single white mana, you get a 1/1. It's a soldier, human soldier. Pay 1, you give this first strike. Pay 1, this gains banding until end of turn, and banding is that classic ability that everyone's afraid of, that seems very complicated, but basically creatures combine together in a band. When they attack, they basically are all one creature, so the opponent has to block the whole band. Then you get to decide how the damage is parsed out. So the opponent doesn't get to decide how the damage is done. Basically, you do. They're all in a band, so you can put all the damage on the one creature and it'll die and the rest of your band is still alive. With blocking, it's even better. You can combine your creatures to block. And then again, they attack with a huge creature. You put the band together, you block it, and then you send all the damage to one of the creatures. You decide the damage. Banding is amazing. They need to bring it back. Maybe even simplify it, but banding is cool. Anyway, how would we fix this? Keep the casting cost the same. Keep it as a 1/1, although I would love it as a 2/2. Keep the pay 1, give this first strike. That's always cool. And then the banding. I'm tempted just to have banding automatic. The creature is not so overpowered that you have to pay extra for the banding. Maybe if it's a 2/2 first strike, maybe it's getting overpowered. But I want to leave banding static ability instead of activated ability. I want to put that first strike and leave that mana cost there. So what do we think? As a 1/1 or as a 2/2? Built-in banding, pay to activate first strike? That's not too overpowered, I think. Oh, the Acacian Money Changer. This is one of the ones I'm going to have to tell you right away. I don't even know how to begin to fix this card. Let's read this novel. I'm going to read the original printed text. Okay, single white mana, you get a 0/2 Townsfolk. Money Changer deals 3 damage to you when summoned. Put 3 credit counters on this at that time. During your upkeep, put 1 credit counter on this. 0, activated ability 0, sacrifice the Money Changer to gain 1 life for each credit counter on it. Use this ability only during your upkeep. Where to begin? Remove the only during your upkeep part, definitely. You should be able to do this whenever you want, not just the upkeep. Besides that, modern wording. Acacian Money Changer enters the battlefield with 3 credits on it. When it enters, it deals 3 damage to you. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a credit counter. It sacrifices, gain all the life. Now, how is it doing 3 damage to you if it's a 0/2? So we're going to remove that at all. You don't get any damage at all when this enters the battlefield. It comes in with 3 credit counters. So right away you can sacrifice it and gain 3 life. Yeah, that'll work. Single white mana, 0/2. It's got the sacrifice ability, and then you'll put credit counters at the beginning of each upkeep. I think that could do stuff. So none of this activate during your upkeep stuff too. We've just improved it. Ooh, the classic Order of Leetbur. These were the Pump Knights. There was a black version as well, but basically double white. You get a 2/1. It's a human cleric knight nowadays. Pretty big job. Protection from black. Take that, terror. Pay a single white. This gains first strike until end of turn. Pay double white. This gets +1 until end of turn. So if you've got the mana for it, you can make this huge, and you can make it first strike with the threat of activation. You attack with this, and the opponent has to make the decision. Do I let it through, and then the opponent uses all of their mana. Do I block it? They're still gonna activate efficiently, just enough of it to first strike me and kill my creature. This is still a very good creature. All of these years later, I wouldn't really change anything at all, and even now it being a human cleric knight, it's better than ever. The only thing to do is decide which of the artworks you like the best. Moving over to blue, we saw Deep Spawn over there. All right, Homerids. The Homerids, these are the ones that definitely, this is sort of, don't even bother trying to fix this card. Here's the original printed card. 3 mana, 2/2, summon Homerid. Put a Tide counter on this when you summon it, and during your upkeep. If there is 1 Tide counter, it gets -1/-1. If there are 3 Tide counters, it gets +1/+1. And when there are 4 Tide counters, remove them all and start over. It's the ebb and flow of the tide. It's way too much work. It's way too overcosted. So we're going to change it up this way. We're going to change it to single blue as a 1/1 Homerid. And then on every turn, it gets a +1. So you can get up to a 4/4 on turn 4. You can get a turn 4 4/4 for single blue mana. But then on the next turn, they reset back to 0. Should they reset back to 0 or back to 1? Now we'll reset them back to 1. Back to 0 is way too small. So it's going to be a creature that ebbs and flows through the turns of the tides, but not with so many shenanigans. It's just going to keep growing with +1s until it reverts back to its pupil stage. Wrong animal, but you get the idea, so that's how we're going to fix it. Alright, let's look at Sea Singer. This one's pretty interesting. In the original printing, 3 mana, double blue, 0/1 Merfolk. Bury Sea Singer if you control no islands. So basically you're sacrificing your creature if you have no islands. Tap, gain control of target creature. If its controller controls at least 1 island, you lose control of that creature. If the Sea Singer leaves play, if you lose control of Sea Singer, or if Sea Singer becomes untapped, you may choose not to untap. So steal your opponent's creature as long as this remains tapped. This can still be pretty powerful nowadays. Yeah, the casting cost is way more than it needs to be, but basically steal any creature your opponent has if they've got an island. That can be very powerful even nowadays. I'm going to put it down to double blue instead of 3 mana in total, and everything else the same. Yeah, if you control no islands, well, let's remove that. Who cares about that? You're never not going to control islands. I guess if someone Armageddons, then, oh, okay, I lost my Sea Singer. But we're going to remove that part. It doesn't matter if you have islands or not. We'll keep the same, tap this if you want to steal something, and then keep it tapped if you want to keep it. Everything else, I think, would work just the same as before, but just lower that mana cost and remove that extra sacrifice ability. Vodalian Mage, I always loved this card. This is one that definitely I would want it a little bit more efficient. 3 mana for a Merfolk, a 1/1 Merfolk Wizard. Pay blue and a tap. Counter a target spell if caster of target spell does not pay an additional 1. Play this as an interrupt. So basically force spike on a creature. I think that built-in ability just fine. But again, that casting cost, let's put it double blue. So you have to be an all-in blue player, and then keep the rest the same. Yeah, counter things for 1. In the early game might be pretty annoying. As the later game goes on, a little less annoying. And then we've got some beautiful Quentin Hoover art. This is just locked into my mind, this beautiful art from back in the day. So cool. Moving on to black, we have this whole Thrall cycle with just this amazing art. We'll start with Armor Thrall. We'll look at Pete Venter's art. This is a 3 mana for a 1/3. It's a Thrall. Sacrifice this to put a +1 counter on a target creature. So it starts off as a 1/3. You can sacrifice itself to put a +1/+2 on something else. Okay, we're going to fix it right away to make it a +1/+3. It transfers itself onto some other creature. We're going to keep it all as an instant ability and so forth. So you can block your creature's big old 5/5 without trample, and then respond and sacrifice this to put these counters on some of your other creatures. You can do some big old shenanigans. Double block with things. This is one of the things that's double or triple blocking. They order their blocks, and then whoops, you respond with tap and sacrifice, put a +1/+3 on something else. Maybe the other thing will live, and that extra +1 helps take it down. I don't know, you can figure out some shenanigans, but the only thing I'm doing here is increasing that. Actually, let's just also make it double black. We don't need 3 whole mana for this. After all, it's got the slow tap ability. You wouldn't be able to do it on the turn you summoned it, even when they attack you that turn, so I think that's a downside that can be mitigated easily. Make it double black. Basal throw with a lot of cool art. Let's look at another Richard Kane Ferguson art. Double black for a 1-2 throw, then tap and sacrifice this. Not sure why it also has to tap. I guess it's like tapping your mana and so forth. Sacrifice the throw and then add 2. So I suppose the idea is they don't want you to use the mana right away. Let's fix it. Power creep is a thing. Let's make it that pay double black to summon this, and then sacrifice at instant speed to give you double black mana. So it can be a blocker and give you the floating mana if you need it. There, we fixed it. We don't need to wait a whole turn. And once again, amazing Richard Kane Ferguson art. Okay, Deralor. Check out this card. 4 mana, throw, 4/4. Okay, 4 mana for a 4/4. Amazing. What's the downside? Huge downside. Your black spells now cost an additional black to cast. This creature was so powerful. Now it's making your spells cost more, your black spells. Yeah, people were really scared of overpowered things back in the day. The way to fix this, simply remove that downside. 4 mana for a 4/4 with no extra abilities, it's a throw. That'll be good enough. Actually, here's how it is in Magical Christmas Land. Keep the casting cost, keep the 4/4, keep the throw. Now we will say, your opponent's spells now cost 1 black more. No, wait, that I don't think that's actually going to work. Your opponent's spells now cost 1 more generic mana to cast. Is that good? No, that's a tax effect in black. That one might not work. Sacrifice this to put 4 black mana in your mana pool. Yeah, there we go. Deralor, we made you better than ever. Hymn to Torok. There's no way to change this beautiful card at all. This is my favorite card in all of Magic. It's so evocative. It just reminds me back in the day playing with my brother, beating him viciously with this card and getting so angry and him almost destroying my cards. And I would too, because look at this. Double black mana, sorcery. Target player discards 2 cards at random. You don't need to read the rest. It doesn't matter. But yeah, target player discards 2 cards at random. You can do this on turn 1, no problem. Play your swamp, cast a dark ritual, gives you 3 black mana, use 2 of that to play the hymn. Turn 1, utterly devastating to your opponent one-on-one. In Commander, it's not that great anymore. You've got 4 opponents to deal with. So if we think in terms of Commander play, I would change this to an instant. I would keep it random. Yeah, this card would still be vicious. It's still going to target 1 player. And in a 4-player game, it's not as efficient. But making it instant, I think, would work, because obviously you do it at the end of someone's turn when it's going to be your turn. You viciously make them discard 2 cards at instant speed, and then you go on with your merry way. Okay, wait a minute. For Commander, okay, I got the brand new version of Hymn to Torok. Triple black, sorcery. All opponents discard 1 card at random. I love it. It is no longer the Hymn to Torok, but the Anthem to Torok. Initiates of the Ebon Hand. Back in the day, I had all of the arts except this one by Liz Danforth. But this one by Heather Hudson was always pretty scary. Initiates of the Ebon Hand. Single black mana, you get a 1/1 cleric. Not a human cleric, interestingly. Pay 1 to add black. So you're filtering colorless mana or generic mana into black mana. But what's the catch? If this ability has been activated 4 or more times this turn, sacrifice this at the beginning of the next end step. People were scared of filtering their mana for some reason. We're going to make this better than ever. No stipulation. It is simply 1 generic, add 1 black. That's it. It doesn't kill itself with so much evilness. It just filters your black mana. It doesn't really make it a better card, but better than before, where it doesn't kill itself. I guess a way to not overuse that is, okay, maybe add 1 black, you lose 1 life. I guess. That way you don't do it too many times, especially later in the game, but the killing itself or filtering black mana, that's gotta go. Here's the order of the Ebon Hand. So the black variation of the Pump Knights is the exact same thing. It's a mirrored pair. Double black, 2/1 first strike, +1 if you pump it, and protection from white. So they battle each other all day long and nothing happens. Keep this card as is. I think it works just fine as is. Soul Exchange. I remember this card. The art on it is just so beautiful. Anthony Waters watercolors. Just beautiful art. Now what does this do? Double black sorcery. Here's the original printing. Sacrifice a creature, but remove it from the game instead of putting it into your graveyard. Take a creature from your graveyard and put it directly into play as though it were just summoned. Put a +2 on that creature if you sacrifice a Thrall. Just such a flavorful card. Modern wording is, as an additional cost to cast the spell, exile a creature you control. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a +2 if it was a Thrall. As is, this is still a good card. We have so many of these exhume effects. We have so many of these effects in black that gets a creature out of your graveyard to the battlefield. And this one is very affordably costed, even with the modern wording of it. Yeah, you have to exile your own creature, but you can make a lot of little chump creatures, pests or whatever, and bring back something from your graveyard. The little Thrall +2 is a fun little addition to it. I would almost keep this as is, although wanting to push things, I would make this an instant. Instants are always way more fun. No one expects them. Keep the exile ability. Okay, if we make it an instant, let's have you exile 2 of your own creatures, instant speed, and then bring it back. Keep the Thrall part of it. I think that's how I would improve this card. And of course, keep the vintage artwork. Like, what is happening there? Like, there's blood over there. This is one of these obvious arts that is just beautiful. You look at it and you see the details, but it's obvious what the art is doing and what the card text is doing. One more black card. Let's look at Thrall Wizard. First of all, beautiful Anson Maddox art. This is Thrall Wizard, creature, Thrall Wizard. I love it when the creature name is the creature type. In the original wording, activated ability, blackened and generic, counters a target black spell if caster of target spell does not pay an additional black or 3. Played as an interrupt, aka instant. There's no more interrupts. There were instants and interrupts were actually faster than instants. Split second is kind of the modern interrupt, kind of, not really, but interrupts were faster than instants. Nowadays it's just an instant. So the modern wording is pretty much the same thing. I would pump up this wizard to be a 2/2 for double black mana, have a double black. Yeah, you can't even do this. You can't even do this card anymore. Counter spells in black are extremely rare. Yeah, you're countering another black spell. Why would you counter your black brethren? So, Magical Christmas Land, okay, let's keep it all exactly the same, but it counters any spell unless the opponent pays 2, let's say. So black counter spells, make it an easy. Yeah, we'll keep the 2 activated ability unless they pay 1. Yeah, I want it to be able to counter everything, not just black spells, but countering anything in black would be way too OP. So keep everything the same, but unless the opponent pays 1. So obviously diminishing returns as the game goes on, but early on, I think a Thrall Wizard as a 2/2 as well, we could upgrade it that way.